Hey guys, this is Matt NES. So, over my many years of collecting, I've been gathering games up for all kinds of different reasons. One being games that I used to play as a kid and are super nostalgic for, which I'm sure a lot of us share that same sentiment. Another are games that came out from back in the day, but I just never got to play for whatever reason. And I'm just hearing about now as I'm starting to collect. But then there's a third type of games that we never really got a chance to play as English-speaking American gamers, games that were only available in Japan. Some collectors like to just import these games and play them either on a region-cracked system or just a straight-up Japanese console of some kind and play with just a guide or something. Some people like to play these games on PC with a patch over it. But then you got guys like me. So you guys know how much I love my physical games, and there are some physical games out there made with English patches for Japanese-only games, and I want to show you a few of those today. So why don't we check out my reproduction game collection? Let's check it out. So the first game we have here in this collection is a little-known series called Final Fantasy. Yeah, ever heard of it? This game actually got several releases in the United States, but never one for the actual Super Nintendo, and I wanted to own that, and that is Final Fantasy V. This is a game that I tried playing on multiple different platforms several times, but I never could quite get into it. It was only when I bought this reproduction cartridge that I actually played through this game from beginning to end, and I absolutely love it. The extremely customizable job system is by far my favorite feature of this game. Being able to create your own experience is one of my favorite things that you can do in an RPG, and I wish more Final Fantasy games had this system, but sadly, I think there was only like 2 different games that had this system completely in it. The storyline for this game is kind of your run-of-the-mill, prevent the bad guy from destroying the world kind of thing, but the gameplay and the customization of the party in this game is so deep and so well done that I don't really mind it not having such a good story, but I feel like I can come back to this game over and over again doing various builds and various different challenges on myself as well. There's also the infamous 4-job fiesta challenge that people can impose on themselves with this game, where at the beginning of the game you can roll to see what 4 jobs that you're going to have, and you stick with them throughout the entirety of the game. Just so much replay value with this game, and it's just a shame that it never came out here. But I'm happy that I can now experience this game in a physical form and have this in my collection. Next up is one of the few survival horror experiences that are actually on the Super Nintendo, and that's Clock Tower. This is a point-and-click adventure game where you take control of a middle school girl who gets trapped in a house with a bunch of her friends, and they're being chased by a psycho killer that wields a giant pair of scissors. It makes more sense when you play it, trust me. You spend a good part of the game trying to hide from the killer that's coming after you, trying to find hiding places to prevent from being detected. You solve inventory puzzles, and even though it is a point-and-click adventure game, it doesn't use the mouse for whatever reason. It still controls fairly well on a D-pad. The game has multiple endings, which gives it a lot of replay value. And just for the simple fact that there aren't any other games like this at all on the Super Nintendo makes this a really unique game. I can really understand why this game never came out here in the United States. The survival horror genre is pretty niche already, and with game violence being kind of a big deal from back in the day, I think this game would have been lambasted from back in the day. I mean, people freaked out over Night Trap, and that was an incredibly tame game. So obviously something like this couldn't exist in the United States, but I'm glad that we can get it now in the form of a reproduction cartridge. So as weird as it is to see a survival horror game on the Super Nintendo, it's kind of weird seeing one on the NES. Yeah, this is Capcom's Sweet Home. This is actually technically a tie-in movie from a Japanese film of the same name. Unlike the point-and-click adventure-style game that was in Clock Tower, this is more of a JRPG where you would explore a haunted mansion with a group of party members, and you would get into random encounters with ghouls, ghosts, and other kinds of demons and monsters and stuff like that. The team that ended up making this game actually went on to create the Resident Evil series, and it really does show. There's actually a lot of staple mechanics that are in this game that are also in the Resident Evil games, like limited health recovery items, inventory items, limited inventory space between different party members. So Resident Evil superfans should definitely be aware of this game. If you consider yourself a Resident Evil superfan, you need to play this game. It's actually a fairly good JRPG, and it's a really good take on the system as well. And having the limited healing items really does amp up the tension. And there's also permadeath in this game. There are no Phoenix Downs. If your character dies in this game, they're dead for good, and that does affect the ending. And did I mention that this game also has multiple endings? This is probably one of the more common games that you'll see at different stores that do reproduction cartridges, so it shouldn't be that hard to get yourself a copy of this game, which should run for about 20 or 30 bucks. I very much recommend it. So going from one RPG to another, I actually got this as my very first reproduction game. This is Earthbound, or Earthbound Zero, or Earthbound Beginnings? Yes, Earthbound Beginnings. We're going to go with that one. That's the one that Nintendo officially calls this game. That's what they called it for their re-release of this game on Wii U. So yes, Earthbound Beginnings. We're going with that one. This was probably one of the easiest English patches to ever be developed for this game because it was already done by Nintendo. Apparently, someone had bought some games from a former Nintendo employee, and one of these games popped up, which was a prototype of an English version of Earthbound Beginnings. Apparently, Nintendo was ready to bring this game out as a proper NES game, but they got spooked, I guess, with Dragon Quest not doing so well in the United States, and I guess just other factors like the Super Nintendo being just around the corner, I guess. But is this game as good as Earthbound on Super Nintendo? No, but it's still pretty good. It's, there aren't a lot of NES RPGs, and I would say this is probably one of the better ones. There is that distinct Earthbound charm when you talk to different people in the different villages and different cities that you visit. I would say that this repro is more for Earthbound superfans, like, I guess myself. But, if you're looking for an RPG on the NES, you could do worse than this. It's pretty good. So we're going from one Earthbound/Mother game to the other, and this is the big one. I definitely wanted to own this as soon as I found out that something like this was available. Mother 3. Yes, you can own a physical version of Mother 3 with the Clyde Mandolin/Tomato English patch on the cartridge. Unlike Earthbound Beginnings, I feel like this game definitely stands as one of the better Mother games in the series. It's almost, in my opinion, as good as Earthbound on Super Nintendo. It's a very different game from Earthbound in a lot of different ways. I would say that Mother 3 is definitely more character-driven, where Earthbound is more experience-driven, if that makes any sense. It definitely does a better job than Mother 3, putting you in the place of a kid on a worldwide adventure, if that makes any sense. Either way, I still think this is a fantastic game, definitely worth owning. I ended up purchasing a DS case and printed out some art to make my own custom case to make it pop on the shelf, because honestly, I feel like this game really deserves it. Finding these games for sale is a little bit less common than something like Sweet Home or even stuff like Final Fantasy V or Clock Tower, but if you do a little bit of hunting, there are people out there that are making these cartridges, and it'll still run you about like 30 or 40 bucks, but I absolutely think that it's worth it. It's a great collector's piece. And of course, there's also emulation if you want to, play the game without having to pay money, but you didn't hear it from me. So that was just a look at a few of my reproduction games that I have in my collection. I could definitely make a part 2 if you guys like this video. I do have a few reproduction games that I haven't shown off that are in my collection, and you know, having a reason to buy more reproduction games is kind of a good thing, so if you want a part 2, let me know. I'll get my credit card ready for you. But as always, if you guys made it this far and you're not subscribed to the channel, what are you doing? Subscribe to the channel, click that button. And while you're at it, leave a comment too. Let me know what you thought of this video. If you want to help me out more, leave a like. And, you know, maybe follow me on Twitter while you're thinking about it too. That would be a good thing. And do not forget, guys, I am still holding my contest. I'm giving away a game, a modern console game of the winner's choosing. All that information will be linked down in the description below. Check it out. Enter the contest. Good stuff, free stuff. People like free stuff, right? So do it. Click the link. But most importantly, I want to thank you guys so much for watching the video. I'll catch you next time.